Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025, and today we are in downtown historic Annapolis, home to the United States Naval Academy, as well as the capital of the great state of Maryland. Today I'm joined in conversation with Maryland's 63rd governor, Governor Wes Moore, who's also a rising star in Democratic politics. We're going to talk everything from his administration to the 2026 midterms to Old Bay. So stay tuned and let's talk elections with Governor Wes Moore. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Elections. I'm Ethan Kelly, the host and creator of Let's Talk Elections. Really excited to be joined today by none other than my own governor, Maryland Governor Wes Moore. Great to see you and great to have you.
Ethan, it's great to see you, man. Thank you.
Really excited for this. I mean, this is honestly, guys, you guys know how much I love Maryland. I'm a huge fan of the state, and for good reason, I say, but really excited for this. So I have a lot I want to talk to you about.
Great.
The first thing I want to get into is just, generally speaking, I hear a lot about how you call yourself the, quote, most improbable governor in the country. And I just wanted to know if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, you know, it's I think it's kind of twofold, right? Where it's both my background, where you know, like I don't come from a political family. I don't come from a political background. I'd never run for office before in my life, and you know, I'm literally a person who I had handcuffs on my wrists by the time I was 11 years old. I watched my father die in front of me when I was 3. You know, I joined the Army when I was 17. I graduated from a 2-year college. So there wasn't a whole lot about my background that said, oh yeah, he's destined to go on to be a governor. And I think the second piece is that the state of Maryland has a very complicated background. Yeah. Where, you know, sometimes people forget that Maryland is the, you know, northernmost southern state in the country. That, you know, the Mason-Dixon line runs through the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
And so for me to be here as not just the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland, but the first black governor in the history of the state, it just meant that that journey was a deeply improbable one when you thought about how it began and now how it's continued to mature. But it's something that I think about every day, and it's something that I take a real sense of pride in.
I can imagine. I mean, thinking about the past 3 years since you've been in office, is there something that really strikes you as something that this job has taught you that maybe the campaign couldn't going into it?
Ooh, you know what's interesting is that in many cases on a campaign, you get a chance to talk about all the things you want to be able to do. Okay. And I remember one of the things that always frustrated me about campaigns sometimes was that when people would come up to me and they would tell me something, and usually when someone says to you, hey, can I talk to you for a second? They weren't about to tell you how great their life was. You know, they're about to tell you something that actually breaks your heart. And as a candidate, there wasn't a whole lot you could do about it. You know, especially because I wasn't an elected official before. I'd never been involved in politics. And so I could say, hey, let me see if I can help out in this way or whatever the case might be, but there wasn't a whole lot you can do. But like when someone pulls me to the side now, is like, you know, Governor, can I talk to you for a second? And they tell me something that can break my heart, I can do something about that. Yeah. I can actually address it. I can actually work to heal their pain. Yeah. And that's a really beautiful feeling. And when I look at some of the work that's happened, you know, that we've gone from 43rd in the country in unemployment to now having amongst the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country, that we've raised wages, that we've addressed child poverty. You know, I'm really proud of that stuff because it means that we actually took the assignment seriously and we actually tried to get to work on the things that I thought were most important to get to work on.
And on that note, I was looking at the mid-year report out of the city of Baltimore and some really exciting news about the lowest number of homicides at this point in the year in over 50 years. I mean, that's obviously incredible and moving in the right direction. What advice would you give to other governors, especially Democratic governors, who might be in this weird position where they're trying to figure out how they can do what you've been able to do with the mayor in Baltimore across this country without falling into some of those stereotypical Republican tropes?
Yeah, I love that because one thing you realize is you actually have to work in partnership. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the biggest problems we continue to see was that the mayor of Baltimore didn't have a partner in the governor's mansion. And, you know, and it's why we saw the year before I became the governor, Baltimore was averaging almost a homicide a day. Yeah. Like, that doesn't work. And so we had to go in and say, okay, what are some of the things that we can uniquely do from a state perspective? in order to help to drive the kind of change we're hoping for. So we made historic investments in local law enforcement. We made historic investments in predictive technologies and predictive analytics. We made historic investments in community groups, and we worked with the mayor, worked with our local county executives, and have been able to drive now what is really historic numbers, where we went from having almost a homicide a day in Baltimore City the year before I became governor, to now the last time the homicide rate was this low in Baltimore, I wasn't born yet.
Yeah.
So it's but that doesn't happen by accident, right? It happens because we actually chose to work together. It meant we chose to invest wisely. It meant we didn't play politics with people's lives. And I think that's what's driving the kind of results that we're really thankful for.
And thinking about these investments in different communities, a big focus of your administration has been young men in particular, especially those who are most vulnerable. And thinking about that and thinking about this focus on young men, what are some of these investments that you've been able to make and you hope to make over the remainder of your term? And now that you've announced you're running for re-election, hopefully 2 terms for you, right?
That's right.
Thinking about that, what are some of these investments? What do they look like?
Yeah, this one was a really personal one for me too, because not just because of the data, and I'm a data person by nature. Like I like getting into the details of what data is actually telling you.
Yeah.
And it's great, right?
It's great, yeah.
But it's but when you look at the data of what was happening to so many of our young men, our young men and boys, the data is undeniable. That it's 4 times the suicide rate.
Yeah.
That the homicide rate is upwards of 10 times. That the college attainment and college completion rate for young men is the same as it was in 1964. So you can't look at that as a data person and ignore it. But I feel like for so many times, these politicians were just ignoring it. And I said, we can't. And so what we did was we started actually investing in our young men and boys, and not to the detriment of our young girls, but it's saying if you want to have sustainable communities and sustainable families and sustainable homes, that it's important that we're making sure that young men and boys are actually included in that. And so we made investments in things like making Maryland the first state in the country that has a service year option for all of our high school graduates, making historic investments in apprenticeship and trade programs, getting people into the workforce, that we signed the largest mass pardon in the history of the United States of America for misdemeanor cannabis convictions, because we said that every sentence should not be a life sentence. Yeah. That we invested in something called the Thrive program, which is actually focusing and targeting on the young people who have the highest probability of either being the perpetrator or the victim of gun violence. And it just so happened that over 97% of them were young boys. Yeah. And so we've been able to see real improvements with the situations for our young boys in the state of Maryland, but that's also partially because we've decided to focus on it. And I'm just and I look at it I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son, and I want the world for my daughter. Absolutely. I want her to have every opportunity, every God-given opportunity that she has in front of her. I also just want to make sure that my son has the same.
Absolutely. And thinking about that, I can't help but think all of this conversation about young men and young boys in particular, after the 2024 election, a huge gender gap in vote share between Vice President Harris and President Trump. I think about this, do you think that this investment in young men is the blueprint or pathway forward for Democrats on the national level? I think everyone has been asking, do they need a left-wing Joe Rogan to win back young men? Or is it really these investments that make a difference? What's your take?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think that for a lot of people who are like, well, what happened with young men with the election? The way I kind of look at it is that's not the head, that was the tail. That the reason you lost young men in a ballot box is because you lost them a whole lot longer than that. And if you're not actually addressing the issues, if you're not presenting pathways to real opportunity, work, wages, and wealth, and if the only time you want to talk about it is during an election year, then you shouldn't be surprised when people look at come election day, they're like, no, I'm good. Thanks though. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think we have to show that this is not an election strategy, but it's actually a governance philosophy. It's the way we just think about our work. And it's the way we are trying to propel the kind of improvements as a society that we want to be able to see. I think if you can figure that out, you're going to figure out the election stuff. Yeah. But you'll never figure out the election stuff if you don't figure that out.
Yeah. So on this note of election stuff, my channel is called Let's Talk Election, so taking a brief moment to talk about them. You've announced you're running for re-election in 2026. But you're not the only one who's legally eligible. Former Governor Larry Hogan is seemingly toying with the idea that he might run for re-election. How do you size up a matchup between yourself and him coming next November?
I'd love it. I'd say that the water's warm.
Okay.
You know, because I would love to have a real debate about his record versus mine. And, you know, the fact that, you know, we've been able to add around 100,000 new jobs in my 2.5 years as governor. That's more than he added in 8 years as governor. That, you know, we went 8 straight years of watching 300 plus homicides in Baltimore City, unabated. And we, you know, not only broke 300, but we're now on a pace of not just breaking 200, but having amongst the lowest homicide rates that we have now seen in 5 decades. That, you know, that we watched how the budget increased, spending increased in Maryland under his watch by 70%, while, you know, while he was the governor, even though our GDP essentially stayed flat, our growth stayed flat. We've now gone 3 straight years of actually having a declining, of shrinking the size of state government, shrinking the size of the general fund, and actually producing more with less. So, you know, I don't know who's going to run against me. I'm prepared for anybody. The only thing I'd say for anybody who's considering it, I would just tell them buckle up, because we're ready.
You think you'd win?
I think people have learned you're not going to outwork us.
Gotcha. And thinking about, you know, the next election, you said you're not running for president in 2028, but just thinking about, you know, everyone's looking for this Democratic savior to some degree in the next cycle. What qualities do you think are the most important to beat the eventual Republican nominee, say it be J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, or whoever? What are you looking for in the next candidate for Democrats?
I'd say whoever is the Democratic nominee in 2028 had better be taking 2025 seriously. I think that people are looking for results.
Absolutely.
You know, what have you actually accomplished? What have you gotten done? Not what have you talked about, not what did you scream about at a rally. Like, what have you accomplished? Because I do think what's going to be really important for people is it's not just talking about how bad things were now. It's, did you provide an alternative? Did you show what a better direction could look like? And so I'll be anxious and curious to see whoever is the nominee. But I think that the answer that people are looking for is, it's not about what's the slogan or what's the message. It really is about who's actually delivered results that people can believe in.
And on that note of being a pushback against what's happening right now with this second Trump administration, we're one of 2 states that border the nation's capital, and we saw recently the federalization of the DC law enforcement. And I'm interested, you know, you've put out a statement calling it lacking seriousness. And, you know, could you say more to what we're seeing over in the nation's capital?
Yeah, I mean, it's performative, and it's expensive, right? I mean, like, listen, if you tell me, you know, we could spend hundreds of millions of dollars activating a National Guard to go do municipal policing, or you give me hundreds of millions of dollars to put towards things that could actually help to stop violent crime, I could tell you how to stop violent crime with hundreds of millions of dollars. And activating the National Guard is not one of them. That's not what they're trained for. That's not why these men and women put on the uniform. You know, they follow the orders of their commander-in-chief, and I can tell you in the state of Maryland, you know, as I take very seriously the fact that I'm the commander-in-chief of Maryland's National Guard, and I also can say to all of the members of our National Guard, I will never put them in a situation that I think is not mission critical or mission aligned. I will never activate the Maryland National Guard for something that I think is performative. I will never activate the National Guard or put them in positions and situations that are dangerous for them and also potentially precarious for their families without thinking that there's a measure of seriousness about it. And I think about the times where I have activated, where I've had the very humbling experience of actually telling men and women that I'm asking them to go into harm's way for the larger benefit of our society, whether it is historic flooding that we've seen in Western Maryland, whether it's the fact that I have members of our National Guard and our Air Guard that are currently deployed overseas. I take every one of those orders seriously. And I will never I will never accept or authorize an unserious mission, particularly when I'm talking about the human lives, and I know the human lives that I'm asking to take on those missions.
Well, I mean, it's a lot going on at the nation's capital. I want to bring us back down here to Maryland to ask you a few rapid fire questions before we get out of here.
All right.
A few seconds to answer them. Sound good to you?
Sounds good.
All right. So first question, I think this is probably one of my most important ones. Do you put Old Bay on your fries?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Old Bay, so here's the thing. Old Bay, you can put on damn near anything.
Anything.
You know what I mean?
I saw Old Bay ice cream at Giant. I said, wait.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Old Bay, I tell people, Old Bay is one of the few things that it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Absolutely.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
Old Bay goes on savory. Old Bay goes on sweet. Old Bay goes on popcorn. Old Bay goes on fries. Old Bay can go on crab cakes.
I don't know if you saw the Old Bay vodka. I saw that the other day.
I did see that. Now,
Okay.
I don't know about Old Bay vodka. I'll definitely try it. But I tell you what, have you tried the Old Bay hot sauce?
No, I have not. I didn't know they had one.
Bananas.
Okay.
It's really good. Yeah, you got to try Old Bay hot sauce.
Thank you for the recommendation.
Of course.
Next question is, who's an athlete out of Maryland that you brag to other governors about?
Oh.
There's a few.
Current or retired?
Anybody.
I will go with Ed Reed.
Okay.
So Ed Reed was a safety for the Baltimore Ravens, or Ray Lewis, both of them. But I don't know of two defensive players that did not just, play really well and became Hall of Famers, but literally changed the game.
Yeah.
Like as a quarterback, one of the last things that you did when you snapped the ball, when you got the ball, was you needed to know where Ed Reed was in the field. Because your whole offense, your whole game plan was going to change based on where Ed Reed is.
Yeah.
That there was not one person who, if you were a running back or a quarterback who was scrambling, who, if you saw Ray Lewis running at you, you did not say, I'm about to slide or run out of bounds, because that's a business decision for me. And so those are two players that I think just completely revolutionized the game of football.
Awesome. So this is a bit of a hypothetical. Let's say you're on a dinner date with the First Lady down in Baltimore.
Okay.
Where are you going to dinner?
Ooh. And any kind of food.
Any kind, yeah.
So if I want a crab cake, I'm going to Coco's.
Okay.
If I want a fancy meal, I'm probably going to Charleston.
Okay.
If I want a really fun dinner with really good food, I'm going to Black Swan.
Okay. Thanks for the recommendations. We're getting so many today. That and the Old Bay hot sauce. I'm going to do it. So you're at Camden Yards, National Anthem was on. Are you singing the O with the crowd?
Oh, so that's actually a very controversial thing for me, because there is everything in me that wants to scream O's when it comes on. The problem is that I have been so trained on the national anthem with the military that it's like I actually sit there at attention the whole time during the national anthem. And as much as I want to scream O's, I just can't.
Yeah,
so I just kind of smile.
We'll do it for you.
Watch
we'll
it.
do it for
there
you.
you
Right.
go.
Yeah,
there
yeah.
You go.
All right, so the last one on this rapid fire is complete the sentence.
Okay.
Maryland is the best state because?
Maryland is the best state because we leave no one behind.
Nice. Good incorporation. I see it when I drive into Maryland from DC. Leave no one behind, right? Yeah.
It's real.
Yeah.
It's true.
So I always wrap up these just by asking, about 95% of my viewers are ages 18 to 29.
Yeah.
And often they are watching these videos because they're interested in getting involved in politics to some degree.
Yeah.
So I want to know if you have any advice for people like them that are just interested on the periphery, watching these and really want to get involved in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say don't wait. I remember the amount of people who told me when I was getting ready to run for governor that I shouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I didn't have experience. I had never run for office before. Why would the first office you run for governor? All these people who had these really long resumes were running, and it's going to be bad for you. No one tapped me on the shoulder and said, it's your time. No political party said, hey, we think you're going to be our nominee. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew the issue I wanted to work on. I knew that, and for me, it was the issue of child poverty. Like I think it's absolutely disgusting that you can call yourself a civilized society and you have children who are growing up in poverty. Like literally their life is being determined for them before they even have a say. And I didn't wait. I was deeply impatient. And I did not let somebody else telling me what I could do determine what I did. And had I did, I would not be the 63rd governor of the state of Maryland. So the advice I would give to folks is make sure you're building up your skill set. Make sure you're finding that thing that makes your heart beat a little bit faster. But when you find what that thing is that makes your heart beat a little bit faster, don't ever let anybody tell you not to go ahead and fix that, because you are the reason they are telling you not to do it is because they do not appreciate the light that you already have inside of you.
Thank you for the advice, and thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, Governor.
It's my pleasure, man. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you.